boomerangs, bombs, dungeons, magic swords, puzzles, and green tunics. Welcome to The Legend of Zelda. In August of 2000, at the Space World Expo, Nintendo unveiled the GameCube for the first time. One of the demonstrations being shown was a battle between Ganon and Link, similar in appearance to the old Link and Ganondorf from Ocarina of Time. The brief technical tease lasted barely a minute, but its impact lingered for a full year. Fans could only speculate at what Miyamoto might have in store for the fourth generation of Zelda. Their wildest dreams were way off. The following year, Nintendo introduced gamers to a Link they definitely didn't recognize. It was quite a shock, and a move some longtime denizens of Hyrule felt was entirely in the wrong direction. Making his 10th video game appearance, the new Link was perhaps the youngest version of the adolescent hero that had ever been created. Miyamoto defended the decision to make a Zelda game for all ages, and redesigned the land of Hyrule to look like an interactive cartoon. From the sequel's first impressions, a lot of critics and gamers expressed serious doubts, especially since Sony was about to release the PlayStation 2, and Microsoft was well on their way to creating their first home console. Most of those reservations were put to rest when The Wind Waker was released in March of 2003. The ironic thing about the new art design was that it was initially criticized as failing to give the Zelda series the next-gen detail and expression they felt it deserved, when the Link in Wind Waker is arguably one of the most expressive video game heroes ever conceived. From his subtle eye movements to his jubilant exultations, he's also one of the cutest characters as well. To this day, few games have achieved this caliber of cel-shaded animation. The story took place hundreds of years after the Ocarina of Time. Hyrule now lay at the bottom of a deep ocean called the Great Sea. Legends of a boy in a green tunic, a buried gold relic, and an unnamed evil were passed down across the ages, vaguely explaining how the ancient land had been covered in water. To help instill the courage of the hero of time in their children, and continue their dream of his inevitable return, parents dressed their kids in green garb when they were old enough to begin their own adventures. Once Link got his emerald cloak and cap, he spotted his first damsel in distress, a pirate captain named Tetra. After the Helmarok King dropped her into the forest, Link discovered Tetra and her salty crew. But upon returning to the village, the giant bird reappeared and kidnapped Link's sister, Aryll. With no choice but to travel to the Forsaken Fortress and rescue her, Link boarded Tetra's ship, set sail on the open ocean, and said goodbye to his home. The following breaking and entering sequence was the first time Link was forced to use stealth. You were always free to evade or avoid certain enemies, but this stony searchlight-smothered stronghold turned Link into Solid Snake, with tights. He could pick up barrels and wear them as he tiptoed around, a strategy that was available to you throughout the rest of the game. After the rescue attempt went awry, Link was tossed out to sea and left for dead. Thankfully, he was saved by the King of Red Lions, a one-man sailing ship that gave plenty of wisdom and encouragement to the aspiring adventurer. Once you ran into town and picked up a sail, you could set out to rediscover Hyrule once again, even if most of it was hidden beneath the surface. On the way to Dragon Roost Island, players soon realized the unexpected power of producing environments so boldly beautiful, but technically simplified. It meant that unless you were visiting a major island for the first time, or entering a cave or dungeon, there were no loading times to break up the exploration, and draw distances that had to be seen to be believed. Cruising from one island to another was an astonishingly seamless experience, and the vast ocean was not only the biggest Hyrule ever produced, but one of the largest open game worlds players have had the privilege to explore. Unfortunately, the Red Lion was not a motorboat. With no self-propulsion, Link was completely reliant on the way of the winds. He had to go where they were going, and to swing the directional draft in his favor, he had to learn a brand new instrument. With the titular Wind Waker, Link could command the skies like he was conducting a symphony orchestra. The sheet music layout was similar to the Ocarina's playlist, but you could now change the tempo. The first leg of the seafaring quest charged Link with recovering 3 pearls. He then transported them to the Triangle Islands, revived the Tower of the Gods, and defeated the boss Godan to prove his worth. This revealed a beam of light that warped Link and the Red Lion King miles beneath sea level to the frozen ruins of Hyrule. Trapped in time, the castle was the final resting place of the Master Sword, and the palace, along with all the enemies within it, sprang to life once Link took the blade into his hands. With his familiar weapon, Link could now perfect Wind Waker's additions to the tried and true 3D combat system. You could still lock on and strafe around targets with ease, but the larger shielded characters would give off a signal when they were preparing to launch a heavy attack. When this happened, players could parry that advance, dashing around the enemy and attacking from behind. This gave you one more way to save your skin, and was necessary to free some of the larger characters of their armor. After fighting his way back to the surface, Link soon realized that Ganon still lived. Tetra was actually Princess Zelda, and the King of Red Lions was really the King of Hyrule, who hadn't appeared in a Zelda title since A Link to the Past. He helped Zelda form her Golden Wisdom Piece, informed Link of Ganon's villainous but predictable plan to steal the Triforce, and tasked the young lad from Outset Island to restore power to the depleted Master Sword, unravel 8 nautical charts, slowly revealing the location of the Triforce of Courage, and face Ganon once again. Upon giving Ganon another splitting headache, Hyrule finally succumbed to the pressure of the Great Sea. As Link and Zelda ascended to the surface, the King, Ganon, and the kingdom players had explored for almost 20 years disappeared beneath a torrential tidal wave. These events lead directly into the upcoming Phantom Hourglass for the Nintendo DS. Those who persisted through Link's first GameCube adventure had to stop at least once and marvel at its magnificence. Despite its relatively tame difficulty level, the sheer size of the world and the quest was enough to make the most dedicated fan sigh with exhaustion. The Wind Waker proved that each Zelda adventure will be far from what you expect, while showcasing hours of careful design and years of technical experience. After the Wind Waker, the Nintendo faithful knew they would have to wait a while for the next epic console journey through Hyrule, or wherever Link would find himself next. This time of darkness created another opportunity to release a handheld excursion into uncharted territory. Handheld technology is usually a generation or two behind the consoles, so the Game Boy Advance was able to generate environments similar to the Super Nintendo. Adding several layers of depth to the detailed sprite design from A Link to the Past, the Minish Cap was released in the beginning of 2005. Every 100 years, the Pickery, or the Minish as they like to call themselves, return to Hyrule and grant humans with magical gifts to commemorate the time when they saved the kingdom from imminent destruction. A Pickery festival is held to celebrate their arrival, along with a sword fighting competition. But when the victor Vaati receives his prize, the Pickery sword, he destroys it and turns Princess Zelda into stone. The king and his royal counselor turn to Link, son of the local blacksmith, to bring her back to life. Like all the other portable Zelda journeys, the Minish Cap showed gamers a side of Link's hometown they had never seen before. Your perspective allowed you to look underneath the surface of Hyrule and discover each Minish environment. This miniature race was widely thought to be a fairy tale, but Link could witness the proof of their existence firsthand by shrinking himself at one of several Minish altars. The crafty little critters loved to hide things under objects, which explained why Link's been known to find random treasures underneath rocks or patches of green grass in each game. Near the beginning of the quest, Link was introduced to Eslo, a bird-like creature closely resembling Link's green cap. Eslo helped reduce Link's stature so that he could head out on his mission of microscopic proportions. The trials ahead included collecting and assembling multicolored kinstones, and discovering the 4 quarters of the broken Pickery sword to restore it to full 4-sword strength. Eslo eventually revealed that he was Vaati's mentor, and they were both once Minish. Vaati stole one of Eslo's wish-granting caps, transforming himself into a mighty sorcerer. He then morphed Eslo into his current state and became drunk with power. Link's fight to save the Light Force led him through the tiniest cracks and biggest dungeons in Hyrule, through an Alice in Wonderland tale that only the action RPG wizards at Nintendo could realize. Vaati was eventually destroyed, Hyrule was saved, and the doorway to the Minish world was closed. This ended the last Link adventure ever created. No Zelda title has been released in almost 2 years. Join us next week for a complete tour through the lineage of The Legend of Zelda. and the conclusion to our 6-part retrospective. In the final installment, we'll follow each game chronologically through the history of Hyrule, shedding light on the hidden connections between each title and taking in one of the most successful video game series of all time, from start to finish.